Hello and welcome to What's Up with Dota. So today I'm bringing you an interview for Misery by Defense of the Patient. Now this interview for Misery is based on Team Secret, on why he got kicked out, why Weeha got kicked out, or why he believes he got kicked out, and all this insider information on what happened, the situation with Team Secret. But again, this is just a podcast, so it's just audio, so I'm just gonna be playing some gameplay footage. You can listen to this while you're doing something else or something like that. But again, this is by Defense of the Patient. It's fairly long. I cut off some of the beginning just because it didn't have to do much with Team Secret, but more about what's going on with him today. But yeah, I started the interview like 25 minutes in, where he starts talking about Team Secret and his thoughts on the current situation and everything like that. But again, this is by Defense of the Patients. I'll leave their information or their website on the description below. But yeah, listen to this while you're doing something else because it's just a podcast once again. But let's get started.
Now, speaking of reshuffling changes, obviously the big one is that you went from Secret to DC ultimately with Weeha. And from the outside perspective, this was very sudden because we saw something on your Twitter. You tweeted about it no longer being a member of Secret, and we basically, most of the public got that information through the Twitter sphere or through Reddit and stuff. So, I've got to ask you about the roster change. To what extent did you know or have some idea that this was going to happen? Like, were you also entirely caught by surprise, or was there some understanding or some conflict or some way of you knowing that this might happen?
I mean, you could say that it was always like a fear of getting kicked from Team Secret because you had a great team here and you had won tournaments and you had a good time together and you had it was just a fucking great team, right? And I know for a fact that Pi was also really afraid of getting kicked, and so was I. And looking back at it, it's kind of fucked up that you're afraid of getting kicked from a team that you actually won so many tournaments with. Like, okay, not so many, but we won 3 tournaments or 2
in a row,
in a row or whatever, and got second in major, won a major, out of 2. So it's pretty damn good results. But you're still kind of not knowing what's going on, and you're afraid of getting kicked in that sense. But that being said, I did not expect getting kicked 4 days before the shuffle after winning the major. I thought that was a completely retarded decision. But yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, there was maybe 2 periods where, or one extended period that maybe where your fears kind of heightened, because for the spectator, Secret sort of started to underperform and dip after the Frankfurt major. Around December and January, you guys had quite a poor record, I think, in overall series, losing series. Was that maybe when your fears were kind of heightened? And in what degree did Shanghai major kind of change your perspective and your expectations? Because you guys did as well as you could have done at the Shanghai major, and I would expect that the mindset for you and those fears may have been kind of calmed down, and those things would have changed.
I don't know. I don't even know if it's based off us losing the fear of getting kicked. I think it's just a general thing, because I remember feeling this way even after the major, because then there's another shuffle coming up. What's going to happen now and stuff. So it's not really based off our slump. I didn't feel I feel like we did have a slump also in the team, but the atmosphere was never bad. It was never at a point where someone is getting kicked tomorrow or something like that. It's never completely awful. So I don't know. It's just kind of weird.
Well, you did mention that. I mean, so this was part of the surprise, I imagine, because obviously you guys won Shanghai. You've done really well at a couple of premier tournaments. I think you won the MLG World Championship. You obviously came in second in Frankfurt, and you guys were performing, fairly consistently, doing pretty well for quite a stretch with your team up to that point. So, that being the case, what do you think were the reasons behind the changes? Was there a difference in philosophy on how you viewed the game? Was it a personal issue thing? Why do you think, you don't have to go into too much detail, but what were the reasons behind it?
I mean, I don't want to offend anyone and get in some fucking Twitter, Reddit kind of drama right here.
Of course.
Like, I think it's just based off wanting to play with Arteezy again. Both Poppy and Envy, I guess. And then Universe kind of has to be in the mix too, because they're friends and stuff. And then, then a decision has to be made. And then that's pretty much it. I think I did not feel like I did not have any issues with anyone in the team. And I don't think anyone can really say that they had issues with me either. So for my sake, the team was in a really good state, even after we lost in whatever Croatia tournament. So from my point of view, there was really no really valid reason for the kick, except for just maybe thinking that they I don't know, that we couldn't win TI or the next major with that roster. Well, I mean, I don't know. I just think it's a retarded thing to do by them, but it's their choice. Let's see how they do in the tournaments.
Fair enough.
That's go ahead, True.
Well, trying to stay as politically correct about this as possible, I guess. Weehaw kind of went through this alongside you. Just talking trying to be speculative, but also trying to be polite about this, I guess. Did you see this kind of coming for Weehaw as well? Do you think that he was maybe on the, on the hot seat, so to speak, as well?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't surprising to me in that sense that it was me and him, because, it's our tour coming in, and that Arteezy has to play either mid or carry, and since Envy is Poppy's right hand, then
okay,
it's it's pretty obvious in that sense.
So for you personally, you didn't think that you had any personal issues with either your play or any kind of individual conflict. Do you think that was the same case for Weehaw? Were there maybe internal issues regarding his performance? Because he is, for your team, he was the least experienced and he was the newcomer, right?
I mean, I think the only issue we might have had was around Weehaw and Poppy maybe having arguments, and obviously rest of us having to side with Poppy, because Weehaw has a habit of being very stubborn and very argument, having some stupid arguments and talking a lot of shit without thinking of too much, but not meant in any bad way from him, obviously.
Yeah.
It's just a bad habit of his, and I think that is probably the reason to why you would want to replace him.
Would you attribute those kinds of things just typical of a younger professional player? Because it seems like it's, we've probably all been there at one point, just in terms of how brash we could be.
I mean, maybe yes. It might have something to do with his personality. It might be just bad habits straight up. I don't know. It's hard to say, right? But yeah, I mean, we won the major with the guy, and he destroyed a lot of games. So
yeah,
it can't be that bad. But I mean, apparently it was. So yeah.
So how soon? Sorry, Jack. So how soon did you and Weehaw decide to pair up then? Because afterwards you guys were both kicked. Was there a quick communication between you guys that you wanted to commit to the same team, or what was that situation like for the aftermath?
I mean, we had 6 days or something, or even less. I don't remember exactly, but I had a few days where I just thought about taking a break and just waiting till TI6 and find out if I could do something else or be a caster or some of that stuff.
So emergency control got turned on. Huh?
Some shit like that. Help out in Dota in another way. But after a few days, I thought, after some people convinced me and my parents talked to me, and I thought about it for a while, I thought I should just give it a try, right? And try to get the best out of the situation and make a team and qualify and get my revenge or something similar to that, or just try to win, because after all we did win. Me and we did win a major as well, so we can't be that bad. So we should try and get a team together.
Yeah, first and second at those two majors is obviously the best two major performance from any team. So certainly, when you guys hit your stride, you were doing really well. So, just to go back a step, so like even in Croatia at Dota Pit, you had no idea that this was in the works, or was it, like you just basically didn't know, and then right, it's like you didn't have basically any advance warning of this.
No, I did not. No.
Okay.
Yeah, we had no conversation whatsoever about this.
Do you think that there's been a lot of talk because of that, and because of kind of the domino effect that causes, because you have very premier players going from switching teams, and that opens up opportunities from other players and teams as well. Do you think that in this major system, with the way the roster shuffles and roster locks are currently done, do you think that needs to change, or are you okay with that? Do you think that's generally been a good thing for the players?
I think it's fine. I think I think the roster locks are totally fine. Completely. I think if there were no roster locks, then I would get kicked another time, and it would be the same situation, right? Yeah, I could join some other team maybe and play some qualifier for TI or something like that. But like it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, this is maybe even more secure for teams, as I think there are way less roster changes in general for teams, because changing roster is like it's not really something that you want to do every day. Like, then what's the point, right? It's much better to try and work out things, and if you have any issues. So I think it's fine. I think it doesn't really change anything. Like, maybe you would get kicked 2 months later, and then the major is over, and then now there's just 2 months till TI or something like that, and then it's kind of even worse to some extent, right? Now you have to make a team and completely new team 2 months before a TI, and it seems much harder than make a team now, like 5 months before TI or something like that, right? So, so I think it's fine. I think it's still fair.
Were there any other situations or teams that you considered after the secret news? Like if you can, again, any very personal or private details, you don't have to share with us. But what was the process like for you reaching? Did people reach out to you immediately and say, "Hey, we want you as a player now," or was it kind of like you had to scramble to look for somewhere that the team, after you made the consideration, of course, talk to your family and such?
I mean, it was like I had some people talking to me and writing me and stuff, and I talked to some people, but generally I didn't really know what I wanted. I think the only guy, like the guy I wanted to only guy I contacted myself was PPD after what happened, and they already had something in works with AUI and Bulba. So that was how that was. And then, yeah, I just talked to some people from DC and some other people, but this was what it ended up with. So
I see. So what was your general impression of, say, because it had to be pretty chaotic at that point, right? Like you have, because now it's like I said, it's a domino effect, and you got players going to different teams. So, if you can talk about more of how you felt, or what was that like, just thinking like, oh God, like how many teams have already started making plans or already have something in place for this to happen? Like, did you feel like a lot of people knew what was going on and had already made their plans beforehand, or was it kind of just like a, wow, this is just a scramble right now?
No, I mean, I didn't really feel like that. I mean, it was only 3 teams from Europe switching rosters, as far as I know, like DC, EG, and Secret. So, and talking to within these people, I every one of them knew what was happening, kind of, but no one else, almost. And yeah, I knew for a fact that other teams wouldn't change roster. So, or at least I did not expect to. Like OG, why would they change roster? Like they have a great team, so does Liquid. I don't see any point for them to switch roster. So I didn't even consider that as a possibility. I thought they were already established, like for sure. And like, of course, they locked their roster, for this with the same roster. So I just went around the people that I knew was getting fucked as well as me by the changes.
So how did that? So you're listed as the captain now of Digital Chaos, and you're moving to support instead of offline. So how did that basically come about in terms of picking your teammates, or to what extent did you choose, or your teammates were chosen, and was decided who would be captain or who would be playing what position? Because you have a lot of very young players, a mix of younger players and like newer generation players on your team. So how did that ultimately settle down in those span of 4 days before the locks?
I mean, I think obviously I talked to Weeha a bit, and he wanted to continue playing and make something. And I had some recommendations from different people from EG and stuff about Resolution and Saxa. So we talked, us four, and Weeha wanted to play carry, and Resolution obviously mid, and Saxa support. So I was offlaner, but we still needed a captain. And we also needed a fifth player, and that fifth player had to either play, like most likely play support and be the captain, right? And so it didn't really seem possible to find such a player within 3 days or whatever. The people that were available were usually carries or other mid players or something like that. And then I started thinking about, maybe I should be captain and go back to support. I could do that. And if that's how it ends up, how would I, like, who would be playing offlane, right? And I thought about Moo, because I saw him play at the major, and I've heard good things about him. And I thought he was really good, so I contacted him, and he was up for it, since his own team had issues with one player or something like that. I don't really know the details. It doesn't matter. The point is that he became the offlaner, and then I took the role as support and captain, and that was pretty much my own decision. I thought that was the best way of making the team work.
Awesome. So big adjustment from you there. And just in terms of that, again, because you have as much perspective as anybody in the professional scene, because you've been playing at a high level for so long, what are some of the challenges of being a captain these days that are different from maybe back in the day, or a different role maybe that you have to play, not just in Dota terms, but maybe, psychologically, especially because you have such a young team?
I think, from playing just a little bit already, obviously switching to support and getting to be a captain, it's two big things, and it's gonna take a little bit for me to get used to it. But it's really hard to be a captain. It's by far the hardest role in Dota. I think it obviously also depends on what kind of players you have with you, because some teams have like maybe one captain, but a lot of people talking and a lot of people having ideas and having good calls and stuff. So the captain himself maybe is just a guy you believe in, that is drafting and that you can stand behind and that you respect and stuff like that. Whereas other teams have maybe, not this quality, but instead they have players who follow one guy, and then this one guy has a lot of responsibility and a lot of things to think about and a lot of things to say in the game, and also outside the game on how to improve and stuff like that. So it depends a lot on the team and what kind of captain you are required to be in that sense.
Okay, well, let's take a kind of two-part approach to this then, maybe. So you just came from Team Secret. What was the atmosphere like in terms of in-game for that team? Was it kind of a combination of people making shot calls and kind of doing things by community, or was it more of that singular voice method that you also mentioned?
I think it was a little bit of both. I mean, Poppy has said a lot of things in game and had a lot of decisions, but at the same time, Envy could be very vocal depending on what carry he would be playing, and I could be very vocal as well depending on my hero and how my game was going. And Weeha would probably say the least together with Pi, but generally, I mean, it also comes down to we played together a lot and we practiced a lot, and we already knew our roles and what the game plan was in the game. So maybe the communication didn't have to be so strict. People would already understand what's happening in the game from just
it's more
playing.
like natural flow.
Yeah,
of
kind of, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's obviously very hard with a new team because you don't have any background together whatsoever. There's just nothing. So it's much harder to start up like that. But like in the major, it's, for example, when we played in secret, it was not that much. Like it was very, very. It was a very nice flow we had in a lot of games, and yeah, that was like obviously Puppy did a great job as captain, but like we also helped him a lot in game and stuff with calls and what to do and stuff. Yeah.
So do you anticipate, like, with your first time captaining and also with a newly formed team, that this kind of, it'll be like a process from starting where you would probably have a much greater responsibility to speak up and direct like the in-game decision making, and kind of work towards that kind of working by community and working as a team? Like, what do you anticipate as your kind of how much of a kind of a burden to have in game as a captain?
As of right now, it's a bit difficult because, like I said, I have to get used to both new heroes and how they work, but also remember how the game works itself and how to fucking draft. And like, there's actually a lot of things I have to think about now. And it's very difficult, and it's hard to maintain your confidence in what you know and stuff like that. It's definitely going to be very hard. But I'm looking very much forward to go to America and be on LAN and talk, and so I can talk to the guys face to face, and also like much easier to improve and watch replays and point out things that we want to do in the game. But for now, we're just online, and we're 2 guys in America and 3 guys like spread over the whole continent of Europe. So it's hard, but it's fine. It's a new team and stuff, so it has to be hard.
Well, that sounds like a pretty incredible challenge you've undertaken to kind of learn the ropes for 2, very, very big roles, and not even mentioning drafting. Because we've had instances in the past where, like, teams might have a separate drafter and kind of in-game shot caller, right? So for you, it looks like all of that is going to be resting on your jurisdiction.
We saw that during Shanghai that a lot of teams that had coaches actually had a good amount of success. Liquid, you guys, and I think Fnatic and some other teams that had finished near the top. And this is something that's kind of been growing. So in terms of things that you are taking with you that are positives from Secret, be it leadership or captaining or maybe having a greater emphasis on coaches, which of those things do you think, how do you see that carrying over to your new team?
Generally, I think it's extremely important to have a good coach. And I think that showed very much at the major. And I don't know, it's hard to find a coach, but I am always up for a coach. I think it's almost a necessity at this point. Otherwise, you might lose out. It's very important for sure. Like, Stephen helped us so much at the major. I don't know if we would have won the tournament without him.
Yeah, multiple people have said that. They've spoken very highly. And what do you think are some of the coach's main, or the value that he brings to the team that isn't otherwise available? Is it kind of just like some people have said it's like a fresh perspective on the game because you're so zeroed in and so focused when you're playing that maybe you don't see the big picture, or just maybe some people have also said that it's a voice that kind of complements the captains and makes people say listen more to the captain or on the draft. Like, what do you think were some of the functions that Theben played, or that you think are most valuable that's hard to find in a coach?
I think there's a lot of things. It's that what you just said, like the fact that he comes into the team and then he gives us new insights and new ideas on how we should approach different situations and different like styles of play and stuff like that. And once you start playing more under that idea, then it's also like everyone listen to Puppy, stuff like that. Sure, but it could also be you should really trust in X player's hero, like my lone druid or something like that. You have to believe in that he will eventually carry you. You know, don't stress and stuff like that. You know, it can be many things. And in the tournament, that's mainly on the boot camp, right? But in the tournament, it's also about keeping everyone focused and keeping everyone, like, even though we're secure top 3 or secure, we beat OG or we beat some fucking EG or whatever, like he would still keep us focused and keep us motivated to continuously try harder and practice and keep talking about the games and stuff like that. And then after losing a series, or after not a series, like one map, he would keep us calm and keep us focused on what we just fucking did. Like we just picked Ursa or something like that. Why the fuck are we picking that hero when we don't play it? And we fucking first phase it, you know, and like he's just saying that, and then everyone's right. Like
I remember that game.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like it makes no sense. So we should just stick to the plan and move on, because we do have a really good plan and stuff. So there's so many things like that, and I think if you don't have that guy, you can easily just start choking, and fucking next game you pick Ursa again, and then it's over.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Because I think it's taken quite a long time for this kind of idea to catch on, just for like spectators and fans, because we don't have, you know, a viewpoint. We can't really see behind the scenes and how much the coach can actually contributing. And from what you described, it seems like, you know, it's encompassing, you know, the tactical aspect in terms of, you know, drafting and trying to study teams, like enemy teams for you guys, but also a lot of just, I don't want to make it cheesy, but like an emotional support system as well, just kind of keep you guys level-headed and focused on the next task. So
yeah, I mean, for sure. Like, but it's not an easy role to be a coach. Like, it's actually probably at a level of hard as being a player to be a good coach. I don't think, like, you have Bulba and you have Theben in the Western scene that are really good coaches. I don't even know if there's anyone else in the history, at least. Of course, there might be people that hasn't been like acknowledged for what they've done or whatever, you know. I don't want to like hang anyone out, but like those are the guys who are probably the best coaches so far. And it's one of those guys you want the best coach, because maybe a mediocre coach doesn't do much, and maybe he's afraid of saying something in a situation where you did pick Ursa, and then you know you don't realize that you picked Ursa and that was the mistake, you know. Something like that. But yeah, it's a lot of things that makes a good coach.
Yeah, it seems tough both ways, because you obviously you have to have that respect for the person, you know, probably as a player, and otherwise it's probably hard to listen to somebody who just comes in and tells you stuff. So they have to have that kind of clout or reputation, or have proven themselves in some way, but they also have to have, you know, it seems, as you mentioned, kind of the strategic and motivational skills that you mentioned. So yeah, it seems pretty tough. And, you know, do you think we'll be seeing more of them? Like, is your team going to be actively trying to acquire a coach as well, or what's going to happen?
I think if we are given the opportunity to get a good coach and we all believe in it, then we'll take it. And but for now, we just had to focus on getting the team rolling in the first place. I think, yeah, right now we haven't really talked about it yet as a team.
I've got kind of to loosen things up a bit. We've been on some pretty heavy stuff so far. I've got kind of a lighter question for you. You know, you have a reputation, or people have seen you put Midas on a lot of supports, go Midas on a lot of supports, and you know, where do you think this item is right now, and maybe why we're not seeing it as commonly in competitive games, or maybe on supports? Where I only recall, say, Phoenix or something frequently getting that as a support. What do you think is up with Midas right now?
I think it's just too much gold, and it just doesn't do enough. I think there are some heroes you still buy Midas on. You can, like Night Stalker maybe, and some maybe you can still do on Crystal Maiden. There are some heroes that is still good for, because there's no item that really benefits more, and you want to continuously farm and get more items. But I think the addition of new items like Glimmer Cape, and I don't know, no one's buying Solar Crest anymore, but like there's just so many good items that you want in your team. You want Mech, you want Arcane Boots for your team, you want 4 staffs, you want Glimmers, you want whatever Lotus Orb Veil is also an amazing item now. It got buffed so much. So I think Midas just kind of doesn't cut it. Like, yeah, your Phoenix can buy a Midas, but he can also have a Veil, and then you can win a fight, and then he can have a Midas, right there.
Okay.
And or something like that, and I think it's just a bit too slow, but I think you can still pull it off.
How do you feel about the direction that the game is going? Because we mentioned obviously a while ago, Dendi said that he didn't feel the game was moving in a good direction, and maybe it was becoming too accessible or simplified. Obviously, recently in the spring cleaning patch, we had some changes. For example, the spawn indicators for when you place wards and tower range indicators. How do you feel just generally about the direction of the game and where it's going? Again, it's because you have that unique perspective, having played professionally for so long.
I don't think it's that. I think the thing is the game is just becoming more and more complete. They're getting rid of all this Dota 1 things that is also Dota 2 things, but how you need to go in a practice lobby and find out where you can block and where you can't block the camp and stuff like that, and where you have to place the sentries and the tower range indicator and like whatever else of things that they add. But they're kind of slowly and surely removing things that are a bit random and unnecessary in the game. And I mean, I think maybe the water indicator is a little bit. It doesn't seem that good at first, because it does seem like the game becomes easier, but actually it doesn't. It just becomes different, because now it's even for everybody, right? It's even for the guy voting, but it's also the same for the guy centering afterwards. It's more mind games maybe, and more like having to be coordinated on where you place your wards and where you TP level 1 and stuff to block camps. I think it's fine. I think the game is not becoming easier. I think it's just becoming harder and harder every year, and every month even. Like, teams are trying harder, and the game is becoming just more and more complex as teams are getting better. So I don't think the game is becoming easier. Maybe it's becoming simpler, and there are some new features that are making it easier to play, but not for pro players, because they already know their stuff. It's just becoming easier for all the beginners, and that's just a good thing, I think.
Right, that's an interesting point, because obviously a professional wouldn't have needed that information to be able to, like, they already know that stuff based on feel or practice or instinct. So do you feel a sense that, say, maybe the skill level, generally speaking, is higher than ever, and because of that, is it harder for pro players to find an edge on each other than it was before? Like, do you get that sense because so many people play now and there's so much information out there?
Yeah, I think it's probably just more based off teams and how well they're prepared and how smart they are about going into tournaments, and how they are doing the tournament as a team, like mindset wise. Do they all believe in each other? Do they believe they can win? And do they enjoy playing together? And like, there are so many factors psychologically like that will, like, win you a tournament or lose you a tournament. Like in Secret, we were like the best team ever. We were so fucking strong as a team, and whenever we won, we were like hugging and stuff. And we had never done that in the past. Only when we won tournaments. So we were like a fucking truck, and you couldn't kind of stop us in that sense, mindset wise. So that's really important as well. Not just how you play the game or how you place a ward somewhere or something like that. It's kind of irrelevant, I feel, compared to winning a tournament. It's much deeper than that.
Yeah, it's almost like if you have individual skill raising across the board for professional players, the only difference starts to be how the teams coordinate and play. And in that respect, I also wanted to ask you, I mean, we've heard in the past that some teams that have maybe some internal issues or struggles can still perform very well. Other teams that have maybe, or everyone likes each other, everything goes together pretty smoothly, maybe still don't perform the best or still end up reforming sometimes. So in that sense, what do you think? Do you think there's kind of like this separation now where it's like you don't have to like each other, but because you're still professionals and you have to play as professionals? Or do you still think it's most important and most ideal to have a team that really gets along and really loves playing with each other?
I think it obviously depends from team to team. I just know from my experience why I feel like we won the major. But I don't know how Ichi was when they won TI5 and stuff like that. It really depends from team to team and what kind of captain you have and what kind of people you have involved with the team. I don't think you can generalize on it. But yeah, I think there has been some situations with teams in the past, at least, where people didn't really enjoy playing or didn't really like each other that much, or people had issues, but they could still, whenever they were in the game, and they stopped whining and they just played and tried to win their best, because like that's at least their common goal, is to win. So they could set that bullshit aside and still play. I know there has been some teams like that in the past, but I think it's too hard now. I think the game is too complex, and I think the enemy team is not going to have those issues maybe, and they're going to be smarter. But I don't know exactly. This is getting a bit stupid, but I think it depends from team to team.
All right. Thank you very much, Rasmus. You've been a great guest. We've taken up a lot of your time, and it's late over there in Kiev. Do you have any final comments or shout-outs or anything that you want to ask or say before we cut the show?
Yeah, I'd like to thank DC a lot for their help and their sponsorship, and the fact that they bring all of us to America to a team house and take care of us and stuff. It's really amazing. I think we have probably the best sponsor in Dota, so that makes me very happy. And thanks for all the support I got since I got removed from Secret. That also meant a lot to me. That was kind of amazing. So yeah, that's it.
And that's going to do it for our show today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening in. Please follow our guest on Twitter if you haven't done so already, at Misery Dota. That's MISERY Dota. I'm your host, Korean Barbecue. You can find me on Twitter at KBBQ Dota, and my co-host, Woodshrew, at Woodshrew Dota. And as usual, we are available on iTunes, our entire network of shows. You can follow our main Twitter at .p_show. Search for Defense of the Patients on iTunes, and you can click through our banner to support us as well. Coming up tomorrow is going to be, as usual, Theorycraft Thursdays with Ursinity and Proud. Thank you for listening in to this episode. We look forward, as always, to your feedback and suggestions. And until next week, take care.